अस्सलामुअलैकुम। प्रोग्राम RFI प्रेजेंट्स के साथ मैं हूं नारीन चौधरी। नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस के दूसरे सेशन के शुरका के तज्जिए और मौजू के बारे में उनके ख्यालात जानने के लिए मुलाहिजा कीजिए प्रोग्राम का बाकिया हिस्सा।
Ambassador Qazi M. Khalilullah, Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies, Sindh. Ambassador Khalilullah holds a master's degree in international public policy from the School of Advanced International Studies, Johns Hopkins University, USA. He joined the Foreign Service of Pakistan in 1985 and served at the Foreign Office headquarters in Islamabad as section officer during 1986 to 88, as director 1996 to 99, as director general 2005 till 2008 and 2014 to 2015, and additional secretary during 2015 and 16. He held various diplomatic assignments in Pakistan's mission abroad, Embassy of Pakistan in Moscow, Embassy of Pakistan in Kyiv, and as a permanent mission of Pakistan to the United Nations in Geneva during 2002 and 2005. I now welcome our esteemed discussants sitting on this stage. Dr. Asadur Rahman, Assistant Professor, Habib University, Karachi. Dr. Asad is a dedicated and accomplished academician, renowned for his contributions to the field of politics, social change, electoral studies, and local government devolution in Pakistan. With a profound academic journey that encompasses esteemed institutions, Dr. Asad holds his expertise in political theory, governance, and public development. Holding a doctorate in political studies, his research has been centered on the intricate dynamics of politics, development, and social change in contemporary Pakistan. Our next speaker is Mr. Syed Samiullah, who is currently serving as head of research department in Rabta Forum International, Karachi. Syed Samiullah, in addition, also serves as an associate editor of Interaction, a monthly magazine of Rabta Forum International on national, regional, and international strategic affairs. He also hosts a digital TV program titled Focal Point. Syed Samiullah earned his MPhil in political science from the University of Karachi. His research thesis was on the topic of nuclear safety and security of Pakistan in perspective to its geographical location. Our third speaker for this session is Ms. Haya Fatima Iqbal. Ms. Haya is an independent filmmaker and faculty member at Habib University, Karachi. Through her documentary work, she has covered a range of issues connected with social justice, ranging from gender and militancy to climate change and water scarcity. Her work has been featured on HBO documentary, BBC, Al Jazeera, and Channel 4 UK, Vice, National Geographic Society, Redfish, CNN, and the Thomson Reuters Foundation, among other media organizations. Thank you. Over to the chair of the session, Ambassador Khalilullah.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ms. Bushra Batul, for the introduction of all these speakers, including myself. Mr. Nusrat Mirza, Chairman, Rabta Forum International, Dr. Uzma Shujat, Acting Director, Area Study Center for Europe, University of Karachi. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to session 1 of this conference. I think we had a very productive, high-level inaugural session earlier, and the presentations made were very comprehensive, and the speakers covered almost all the dimensions of the topic. I was pleased to note that when they were talking about our eastern neighbor, particularly the Vice Chancellor and Ambassador Najmuddin Sheikh, they did not close the door for possible cooperation and connectivity between Pakistan and our eastern neighbor India. I'll build on that. Allow me to, at the outset, present my chair's remarks that will set the tone for our discussion during this session. It is a matter of honor and pleasure for me to chair Section 1 of this very important conference, jointly organized by Rabita Forum International and Area Studies Center for Europe of University of Karachi. Thank you for the invitation. Connectivity, supply chain disruptions, food and energy security have become serious issues impacting most countries around the world due to global power contestation, trade and tech wars, clash between unipolarity and multipolarity, war in Ukraine, and Israeli genocide in Gaza. According to the 2024 annual threat assessment of the US intelligence community, the US faces an increasingly fragile global order marked by accelerating strategic competition among major powers, more intense and unpredictable traditional challenges, and multi-regional conflicts with far-reaching implications. Furthermore, it states that an ambitious China, a confrontational Russia, some regional powers such as Iran, and more capable non-state actors are challenging long-standing rules of international system as well as US primacy within it. Bipolarity ended with the end of World War I in December 1991. What we are witnessing today is the end of unipolarity and emergence of multipolarity. Peaceful rise of China and resurgence of Russia have successfully promoted a multipolar world which the US is resisting by any means possible. Pakistan, therefore, needs to come up with a strategy that would protect its strategic interests, advance economic development, and shield it from the fallout of global power contestation. Pakistan has 559-kilometer long border with China, 2,611 kilometer border with Afghanistan, 909-kilometer border with Iran, and 3,323 kilometer long border with India, which includes line of control and working boundaries. Out of these four, China is our time-tested strategic partner and iron brother. Iran and Afghanistan are brotherly countries, and India poses existential threat to Pakistan. Although Pakistan faces security challenges on its eastern and western borders, Pakistan's nuclear deterrence provides the enabling environment of relative peace and security in South Asia, which then facilitates the other elements of national power in nation building to progress unimpeded in their respective spheres. Here I have quoted former Lieutenant General Khalid Ahmed Ridwai, who was Director General, District Defense Division for 15 years, and is an authority as far as our study program is concerned. During his remarks, Ambassador Najmuddin Sheikh mentioned that Pakistan has always attached priority to connectivity and development. I will build on that. I will speak about, I'll not restrict myself to connectivity within South Asia, as also to speak about connectivity between South Asia and Central Asia. Since 1960s, Pakistan has attached priority to regional connectivity for development and shared prosperity. Regional Cooperation for Development, or RCD, Karachi Highway, and Economic Cooperation Organization stand out as examples of Pakistan's geo-economic pivot that predate the coining of this term. CPEC is the latest manifestation of Pakistan's continued quest for regional connectivity for development or geo-economic pivot. RCD was established by Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey in 1964 to foster regional cooperation in the fields of economy, technology, culture, trade, and industry. It was renamed Economic Cooperation Organization by the three countries in January 1985. As mentioned earlier, it was expanded with addition of 5 Central Asian republics, Azerbaijan and Afghanistan after the disintegration of the Soviet Union. 1,300-kilometer long KKH, also known as Friendship Highway in China, was started in 1962 and completed in 1978. Since the independence of Central Asian states in 1991, Pakistan has focused on establishing close relations with these countries in diverse fields, including trade, investment, energy, security, and connectivity. Accordingly, Pakistan's geo-economic pivot is focused on enhancing trade and economic ties through connectivity that links Central Asia to South Asia and in particular to our warm waters. Exit of foreign forces from Afghanistan in 2021 and re-establishment of Taliban rule in Afghanistan has offered valuable opportunities for completion of long-delayed connectivity projects between Pakistan and Central Asia. These include Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, and number 2, Central Asia, South Asia electricity transmission project called CASA 1000 from Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan to Pakistan via Afghanistan. According to Ambassador of Kyrgyz Republic to Pakistan, the 1300 megawatt CASA 1000 power transmission line is likely to be completed this year. It would be helpful in meeting Pakistan's energy needs and enhance regional cooperation in the energy sector. Let me explain that this project was conceived shortly after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, but has not been completed because of developments in Afghanistan. But now that we have Taliban government, they are supportive. This project is about to be completed. Taliban rule in Afghanistan has also offered opportunities to Pakistan for enhancing trade with Russia and Central Asia through the land route. Many noteworthy developments have taken place in this regard. Let me highlight some of them. Number 1, according to Pakistani businessmen, 90% of Pakistani goods exported to Russia by road are going through Afghanistan. And they have told me that they do not face any security problems inside Afghanistan while transportation of goods. B, last year, trucks carrying goods from Russia and Kazakhstan made their first ever trips to Pakistan through Afghanistan. Number 3, Russian LPG has been transported to Pakistan through Afghanistan on trucks. Number 4, Pakistan and Uzbekistan have signed a MOU for construction of railway link between the two countries through Afghanistan. Number 5, According to Kazakhstan's Ministry of Trade, the country wants to develop road and rail links through Afghanistan to connect with South Asia and the Gulf. Recently, NLC trucks have transported goods through KKs and via China to Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. In April this year, a convoy of NLC trucks transported goods through Afghanistan to Tajikistan's capital Dushanbe from Pakistan. Afghanistan has agreed with Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan to build a logistics center or transit hub in Herat, which will facilitate export of Russian oil to South Asia. Afghanistan also intends to hold talks with Russia in this context. However, Pakistan is facing many challenges in its relations with Afghanistan, which were highlighted during the inaugural session, in particular terrorism. But the good thing is that both sides remain in touch and are trying to resolve all issues through dialogue. Now, let me talk about possibilities of connectivity through Iran. And in my opinion, we have not really exploited the real potential of connectivity through Iran. Let me recall that in 1995, I was posted in the Pakistan embassy in Turkmenistan, which I had personally opened in 1993. Pakistan faced shortage of long staple cotton in 1995. The then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mohtarma Shahid Benazir Bhutto, therefore authorized purchase of 31,000 tons of cotton from Turkmenistan and instructed that it should be transported through western Afghanistan so that a transport trade corridor could be opened for regional connectivity. However, this could not happen due to instability in western Afghanistan. As a result, the cotton was transported from Turkmenistan to Pakistan to Iran over the next 1.5 years. 2 months ago, a convoy of 16 NLC trucks transported Pakistani quinoa to Russian cities of Derbent and Grozny. The trucks drove through Iran and Azerbaijan to arrive in Russian cities in 18 days, covering a distance of 6,000 kilometers. Prior to that, Pakistan was transporting quinoa to Russia through the sea route, which took months to reach the destination. We are all aware that Islamabad, Tehran, Istanbul freight train service was launched on 14 August 2009 on trial basis. The train covers 6,500 kilometers in the three countries and takes up to 15 days one way, which is about 10 days less than the sea route. The train service stopped in 2011 due to various reasons, particularly security, but was restarted with departure from Islamabad on 21 December 2021. The train reached Ankara with a load of 150 tons of pink salt in 14 days. The ITI train link highlights Pakistan's potential to provide a trade and transport corridor to regional countries for trading with Iran, Turkey, and Europe. Now, to come to conclusion of my presentation, let me highlight regional connectivity opportunities through Pakistan. In conclusion, let me make a few recommendations for realization of Pakistan's potential as a hub of regional connectivity. In our view, in order to promote regional connectivity for development and for Pakistan to realize its true transit trade potential, it is important to, number one, attach priority to road, rail, and energy projects from Central Asia to Pakistan through Afghanistan. B. Keep in view that the government of Pakistan is inclined to resuming trade with India. Pakistan may consider, number one, offering transit trade access to India for trading with Iran, Turkey, Europe, Afghanistan, Central Asia, Russia, and China through Pakistan and offering transit trade access to all these countries through Pakistan to India by road and rail. Uh, I'll be happy to take questions on this during the Q&A session. Number two, Pakistan may seek in return transit trade access from India to Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and beyond. Number three, this would be a game changer for the entire region and make Pakistan a real transit hub. It would also play a pivotal role in integrating the region economically. I think all these issues were discussed during the inaugural session in different ways. Finally, the government of Pakistan may, number one, take the lead in setting up a forum of regional countries to come together to discuss ways to realize the potential for regional connectivity for development through dialogue, which is the main theme of this conference, and address challenges at borders, including security issues. Number two, establish a ministry or dedicated department of transit trade and regional connectivity in Pakistan to pursue available opportunities on 24/7 basis. And finally, appoint a special envoy, like we have a special envoy for Afghanistan, for connectivity and transit trade for engaging with all regional countries. Let me conclude by stressing that this is the right time to push for regional connectivity by road and rail as maritime trade routes have become vulnerable to geopolitical contestation and reaction to Israel's genocide in Palestine. The Red Sea, as we all know, has become a no-go area. Thank you very much. The speaker of our session, Dr. Asadur Rahman, Assistant Professor, Habib University, Karachi.
First of all, I would like to say thank to Dr. Uzma for inviting me, and respected chair, dear participants, and especially students. This is part of a larger work which we are doing on South Asia and how we can study the political transformations and the social transformation in South Asia and what kind of implication they have on the politics of South Asian nation states in general. So it's a developing work, but I would like to, somehow give a broader, a kind of a vision to it, and then try to somehow problematize the geoeconomic thinking, which is basically pretty much like the dominant narrative of the strategic thinking in Pakistan at the moment. So the regionalism is modern and very recent geopolitical thinking that was introduced in very recent times, especially with the rise of the American system of power. Historically, on the other hand, what we think is the trans-regionalism has remained the more dominant form of geopolitical thinking and political thinking and cultural imagination and, related things. First, I would like to point out how the regionalism is not probably a very helpful analytical tool to sketch the contemporary political reality of South Asia, as for example, the Ambassador Khalil's presentation is itself basically kind of looking at it. It's not regionalism, it's trans-regionalism we are talking about. And next, I would like to critically evaluate the arguments proffered by emerging geoeconomic school of thought by using center-periphery analytics, like to explain that shifting global centers and the emerging of quasi-centers like India and China on the border of the periphery of Pakistan is somehow require us to take it seriously. What is going to happen? Yes, we can think about the fantastical things in our mind, but we have to keep in mind that we are part of the larger global capitalist socio-economic system. And that system has its own structural ways of doing things. So first I would like to just peep into a bit of the historical antecedents of trans-regionalism in South Asia. So trans-racialism was an established fact of the ancient and medieval Indian subcontinent. Beside the trite cliched thesis of unity in diversity, the geographical India borne long-standing trademarks that spread across Asia and beyond. Since the arrival of Aryans and their amalgamation into the local realities, the emergence of a larger cultural imaginary has duly documented that was spread across the Indian regions to as distant lands as Malaya, Indonesia, and Thailand. So you can see that there is this cultural similarities between that went beyond that the landmass of the subcontinent. And recently in 2019-20, India launched that neighborhood policy in which the neighborhood is not just the land neighborhood, but also the neighborhood which is extended to the Indian Ocean. So they are basically trying to now build on those cultural links which they had with Malaya, Indonesia, Thailand, and these Southeast Asian countries to bring into the trade networks. Similarly, the shared cultural grammar, styles of kingship, structure of kinship, and ideas about sacred all are shared across these larger oceanic neighborhood of the Indian subcontinent. During this period emerged North Indian empires and particular style of thinking on statecraft, Chanakya, for example, and politics in general. This is what we call historically before the coming of the Turkic people or the Turkic invaders into this part of Pakistan as the Sanskrit cultural world. Glimpses of Sanskrit world's politics could be found in the texts of statecraft that were widely read and informed the actions of political actors. The nested sovereignty concept, which is very different from the territorial sovereignty concept, which we are having now when we discuss about and think about geopolitics, geoeconomics, and etc. The nested sovereignty was the norm, and alliances were not permanent and keep shifting over times. And that image basically captured by the image of mandala, which is, you can understand is pretty much even in the flag of the India. To keep the political alliances intact, the emperor bestowed large tracts of land, etc. And because of that, there is always less money to give and the economic decline usually set in early because you have to buy the loyalties of the vassals. You don't annihilate kings, you don't kill them, you make them vassals. They are your tributaries, but then to keep them together, you have to give them money. And that money somehow ended up creating, economic declines. And that's where the Richard Eaton calls it, with all of the India's major dynastic houses playing by the same geostrategic rules, the result was not only an intense political jockeying and perpetual conflict, but also overall stalemate and equilibrium. So that was... now coming to the more medieval period, the 1000 onwards, the 10th century, 1000 AD, Turkic onslaught on the trans-Indus region comprising contemporary Pakistan and northern Indian state brought it new ways of doing war, but also introduced new political cultural imaginaries that, for the lack of better term, described as the Persianate cultural world. So from the Sanskrit, and now there is coming a Persianate, another trans-regional. So the introduction of strong traditions of Badsha, so politics, the central absolute ruler, which is pretty much Persian. Introduction of elaborate system of revenue, the Mansabdari system. These kind of things were introduced first time. In contrast to the Indian counterparts, because the traditional Indian view of looking at the political space is pretty much like chess, and that is why the chess was invented in India. There are the space is not titled and enclosed into a particular territorial form, but there are rules through which you are doing it. But on the other hand, the Turkic and the Persian imagination brings in more expansionary tendencies, that there are no frontiers. You can expand your empires to beyond and go beyond. That is why the most of them who are coming from, the Central Asia, but always trying to push to the south of the India. So, however, they were not working in a vacuum, as they must engage with the already well-established and socially embedded style of politics. One of the leading, again, Richard Eaton says that as it happens, the period of India's history is conventionally labeled medieval, coincides with the eastward diffusion of Persianate culture across almost all the Indian subcontinent at its interaction with Sanskrit counterpart. The story of this interaction, the encounter between the Persian and the Sanskrit world, is both rich and complex. And this is what gave it a lot of importance to the way political, in the medieval times, how the political space was imagined, how the geopolitics was imagined, how one house will be, taking into the in the kind of the way, for example, Akbar built a kind of connection with the Rajputs of the Rajasthan. So these were the new ways of thinking where the Persian and the Sanskrit both came together and thinking about the politics. And then came the most important one is the colonial period. So this was happening until the 17th, 18th century. But then with that came the British period. The British period, the idea of borders came once again from an external source, and this time the merchant mercenaries of Europe introduced a new dynamic in subcontinent, a stylized, fixed geographical space bounded by borders. These new entrants were conscious of their own national identity and racial superiority, marked on the journey of building national empires. Informed by the Westphalian notions of fixed boundaries, they felt uneasiness with the spatial notions of an open political space. Thus entered in the strategic parlance of subcontinent the concept of great strategic games. The Tsarist Empire and the British Empire fought wars of intelligence and counterintelligence on the peripheries of the subcontinent, and in the process redesigned the space into center periphery that are yet to overcome completely. And there I'll bring into the center periphery discussion to a bit. India not only turned into a periphery of Britain, but different part of it were also stacked into center-periphery relations. Different governance regimes were established for regulated, non-regulated provinces. Most of the provinces of Pakistan were the non-regulated provinces, princely states, so there were different forms of governance mechanisms. Tribal zones, these different arrangements also gave birth to different kind of political processes across subcontinent. So as you see the peripheries of the subcontinent, they are always having a different kind of a political dynamics. In Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, you will find different kind of slightly different kind of political dynamics playing on, especially in this respect, the national question. The national consolidation remains pretty weak in the peripheries. And that is why also the nationalist movement of anti-colonial type was remain weak in these parts of the Indian subcontinent. So, South Asia was a name given by the American strategist after accepting these ground realities and the nationalistic desires of these elites running these peripheral states. This geographical naming is again an offshoot of the same Cartesian exercise of enclosing a space based on its territorial and geographical features, sans any historical, cultural, and doctrinal relatedness. The geopolitical strategists at Washington, enabled by this thinking, to reimagine the political space and then use their carrot stick strategy to build alliances inside the region that unwittingly ended up reducing any chances of cooperation inside modern South Asia. All the discussions on the 50s, 60s, 70s, most of the learned students and the scholars are sitting, we do know that how this played out, and Pakistan and India went the other ways rather than developing more cooperative. So the external influence in that sense was pretty much negative. On the same hand, we see that how the American influence on the Europe somehow led to the European Union integration, so that was the kind of a different some ways you can say, so one shoes fits all kind of analysis would not suit here, because the global system and its domination has a kind of a different imprints on the different places. So these peripheral states, my focus is Pakistan only, were ethnically diverse like India, but lacked any substantial national ideology, and thus also remain open and prone to the internal conflict. The interstate economic conflict led to disintegration of Pakistan. Sri Lanka faced a long ethnic conflict, and Nepal also remained engrossed in factional fights for a very long time. These hegemonic fears of India also curtailed any economic integration. Coming back to the last part of that Pakistani particularity, the states and provinces that are now part of Pakistani Federation were part of non-regulated territories and thus received two kind of special effects that largely shaped their post-colonial political economy trajectories. First, these areas were raw material producing zones and received little or no industrial investment. Second, the representative and democratic politics in these regions came late, and governing systems were remained mainly authoritarian and indirect. Due to high power given to the bureaucracies in some manner, the post-colonial Pakistan, in its ideological thinking, went more closer to the Western ideals of statecraft and territorial thinking than even the other states. The Pakistani government launched in the first few economic policies, creating separate currencies, blocking intra-regional trade were such initiatives were taken in order to make the economic, nationalism work in the case of Pakistan. However, the new research shows a very different kind of a thing in here, and that was on the official side, the Pakistani state was always, taking action in which they were kind of, doing that India, we should not be doing trade with India, and it is still the case. But Ilyas Jatt has very interesting work on the borders, the Punjab borders, recently published 2022. So he brings in a lot of historical data into it, where he's telling you that Pakistan was basically encouraging a lot of smuggling on the India-Punjab borders, especially like Lahore borders. And on the one hand, the India was calling it that you should stop it, let's do and take something, or divide make it more permanent. There should be more regulation in it. And the other hand, the Pakistani side was a little bit showing reluctance in doing it because of the, benefit, because Pakistan was not a manufacturing place. There was a lot of things which were needed, which were not manufactured in Pakistan. So it was easier to coming from the India. And that was the advantage. Similar kind of thing we can see now between in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Afghanistan is trying to get more like the open trade, but the Pakistan is now struggling. No, we are going for the more official. So this is the kind of the center-periphery relations. The peripheries are always dependent on that. But on the other hand, we put a kind of a more Westphalian, very state-centric official policy above them, where our politics do not let us to trade. And then these kind of, informal arrangements were working beneath it, which is not part of policy, which is not part of anything. But still they are working, and they are, creating much more, mass in the process. So this behavior in the peripheral state is common, that officially they try to avoid trade, but unofficially it's support it. Beside other explanation, there is another important fact that we need not forget that peripheral bourgeoisie is fearful that competition with Indian counterpart may end up enrolling their own manufacturing business, while the state managers fear to be on a subservient position to the Indian economy. So interestingly, if we look into the most of the economic studies which are coming on the Pakistan-India's trade or Pakistan-China trade, there is always this kind of, there is no such greater advantages which are basically linked with it, especially from the industrial point of view. Merchant-wise thinking, which is the mercantile thinking, which was the thinking of the 17th and the 18th century of the European, bourgeoisie, that is still going on, that the trade is not just, commodities. You have to prepare commodities and then you can trade it. You can only want to trade raw materials even now in the 21st century. That is basically a failure of the industrial policy, or linking your foreign policy with the industrial thinking. So that is why the geoeconomics in Pakistan, that more recent academic investment in Pakistan on the doctrine of geoeconomics, is getting many rounds across the powerful corridors in Pakistan. China's Belt and Road Initiative and its Pakistani counterpart, CPEC, gave currency to this new doctrine. The emphasis on this type of strategic thinking, it is set not on politics, but should be on shared economic benefits. This way of thinking is broadly inspired by liberal vision that more regional connectivity can end up creating shared prosperity and good for sustaining peace. European Union is an example. Second discursive rampart of geoeconomics is the post-war American Marshall Plan that used economic development aid to build Europe and allied countries, and that's what China is trying to pose. Pakistani strategic thinkers have also used this doctrine to lay out the more recent security policy. The recent security policy in 2020, 21, 22 was basically taking geoeconomics as the main, grounding framework. The vision link, like making Pakistan a regional trade hub connecting Central Asia, Middle East, and South Asia, are also regularly debated in the policy dialogues. Given the tottering economy and almost total bankruptcy of the rentier economic model, has forced Pakistan to look for alternative visions of economic development. Chinese investment provides some respite in this respect. However, the geoeconomic vision remains at best fantastic because of the shifting nature of global system. We do not have much of economic studies which check out the elasticities and inelasticities of the trade. What kind of benefits can come off? It is just still on the paper. And more or less, it is still stuck to the geopolitics. We can say that, in that it is geoeconomics, but still it is pretty much think in the terms of the geopolitics, that how much Central Asia will benefit us, politically speaking, and and otherwise connecting with Russia, what kind of strategic implications it will bring to us in the security wise. China, how much it is not just economic but also military equipment trade, arms. So all these things overlap in the policy thinking, but usually we do not specifically streamline them, that what is economic and what is politics in here.
May I request you?
Just 2 minutes. The global economic system has seen some very interesting shifts in the last 3 decades. Over the ashes of Cold War, US and allies were able to build a global level regime of trade liberalization. However, both India and China greatly benefited from this open trade policy and emerged as key stakeholders in the developing system. There have been some debates about the nature of center-periphery relations, but I think they are emerging. We can call it, they are emerging as the quasi centers on their own. However, the Chinese ascent into the high tech and showing of military muscles in Indian Ocean and Indian violation of Western sanction vis-a-vis Russia, along with increasing position as a global software hub, points at some fundamental changes. Can there still be treated as semi-peripheries? I concur with the new line of reasoning that the see China as a new quasi-center. Pakistan lies on the very axis of the Chinese extension and thus cannot ignore the geopolitical pull. While on the other hand, Indian bourgeoisie's global ambitions manifested in political populist Project Modi acts like a force pushing away Pakistan from being part of any efforts of regional integration. Pakistan, struggling with authoritarian political system, dysfunctional state, internal conflict, and high cost of manufacturing, is in no position to respond to its geopolitical push and pull at any level. Most of the policy work is more like firefighting than subtle policy thinking. Making Pakistan hub kind of a policy proposal are good at paper, but Pakistan has no agency of its own in achieving the fate. It has to deal with the chaotic and trans-regional environment in which it has to operate, and therefore no long, a lasting policy could be still made, or I don't see them. Beside that, the peripheral nature of Pakistani capitalism is itself a constraint, because opening of trade may end up creating customer surplus, because customers will find cheaper vegetables, medicines, and other goods and services. However, the Pakistani business and the manufacturer end up losing much of the control of the economy, which readily made strategic planners more perturbed. So I'll stop here. So thank you.
Thank you for giving the research on fusion of cultures in the subcontinent. Our next speaker is Mr. Sayyid Samiullah, Head of Research Department, Dhaka Forum International. You have the floor and you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Chairman, Rabta Forum International, Janab Nusrat Mirza Saab, Acting Director, Area Studies Center for Europe, Dr. Uzma Shujayat Sahaba, Chair and Executive Director of Center for International Strategic Studies, Sindh, Ambassador Kazim Khalilullah Saab, Chair of the second session, Dr. Tanveed Khalid Sahiba, distinguished speakers, my teachers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I'm feeling both humble and honor to be given an opportunity to present my paper among a galaxy of well-learned and esteemed scholars. But it is somehow difficult to say something off the cuff in front of your teachers, so I would prefer to read my paper. Before going to present the topic, the role of nuclear energy in fostering regional economic consideration, ethical considerations, and governance within the regional context, I would like to briefly reflect on the nature of this universe, which is well known to us all. This universe is, in its essence, a combination of matter and energy. Stressing the importance of energy in a layman language, we can say that this universe is nothing more than a mound of gravel and dust without energy. Especially since the inception of industrialization period, development, growth, advancement without being self-sufficient in energy production is a pipe dream. Once we acknowledge the inevitability of energy, the next step is to ponder over how to produce it. Well, there are many ways and resources to produce energy from, like coal, natural gas, crude oil, sunlight, wind, nuclear materials, etc. But when someone asks that why should we prefer nuclear energy over fossil fuels, the answer is very clear that the nuclear energy is the most reliable one. It is the most clean one. It is the most safe one. It is the most reliable compared to any other energy source, as a nuclear power plant operates at maximum power for over 92% of the year, nearly twice as much as natural gas and coal units, and almost 3 times more reliable than the wind and solar plants. Nuclear energy is clean and safe because it is a zero-emission clean energy source. It generates energy through fission, splitting the nuclear atom to produce energy. The heat released by fission reaction is used to create steam that spins a turbine to generate electricity without emitting harmful gases or greenhouse gases or byproducts that are harmful, like fossil fuels. For example, if a 1,000 megawatt coal power plant is activated, it emits more than 6 million tons of gas of carbon per year in the environment, polluting the environment and endangering life on our planet. Moreover, despite producing massive amounts of carbon-free power, nuclear energy requires less land than any other clean air source. A typical 1,000 megawatt nuclear facility needs a little more than a 1 square mile to operate, whereas wind farms require 360 times more land area, and solar photovoltaic plants require 75 times more space to produce the same amount of electricity. The harmlessness of nuclear energy can be further understood by knowing that it produces minimal waste. Nuclear fuel is extremely dense, about 1 million times greater than that of traditional energy sources, resulting in minimal waste. For example, हम अमेरिका की मिसाल लेते हैं. अमेरिका में पिछले 60 साल से जितने भी न्यूक्लियर प्लांट्स बिजली पैदा कर रहे हैं, इस वक्त तकरीबन कोई 92 न्यूक्लियर प्लांट्स वहाँ पर काम कर रहे हैं. And they are producing more than 94,765 megawatt बिजली electricity. अब इतनी बिजली प्रोड्यूस करते हुए उनका जो न्यूक्लियर वेस्ट है that could be dumped in an area of a football field. फुटबॉल के ग्राउंड में उसके वेस्ट को आसानी से आप डंप कर सकते हैं, जबकि पाकिस्तान इस वक्त सिर्फ 3,620, जो 26 गुना कम है अमेरिका के मुकाबले में, तो उसका न्यूक्लियर वेस्ट यकीनन उसके मुकाबले में 26 गुना कम है, जो ये हाईलाइट कर रहा है कि इट इज़ सेफ इवन आफ्टर in the form of wastage. And an interesting point is that the waste can be reproduced and recycled, and there are advanced reactor designs being developed that could operate on used fuel. Now coming to the need of the day, which is to extend cooperation among the nations of the region to foster economic growth and development. The rapid development of nuclear technology has significant implications for regional economic cooperation. For Pakistan and its neighboring countries, nuclear energy presents a unique opportunity to enhance energy security, reduce dependence on fossil fuels, and promote economic diversification. In the realm of enhanced energy security, nuclear energy can play a critical role by providing a reliable and stable power sources. This is particularly important for countries like Pakistan, which face energy shortages and rely heavily on imported fossil fuels, which are on one side very expensive, while and hazardous to human life, while on the other hand, they are not fulfilling the need, the energy need. This time, Pakistan is facing a shortfall of nearly 5,000 to 6,000 megawatts, which affects its domestic and industrial consumers very badly. However, based on cooperation, by diversifying their energy mix with nuclear power, countries like Pakistan, developing countries, can reduce their vulnerability to global energy market fluctuations and enhance their energy independence. While looking into economic diversification, energy is undoubtedly one of the most important drivers of economic growth. Today, if we are experiencing economic decline in Pakistan, one of the basic reasons behind this decline is over 30 million people in Pakistan, the 15% of our population do not have access to electricity, which consequently are reducing potential for inclusive growth. The creation of nuclear energy infrastructure has the potential to promote progress in a variety of ways. It has the potential to stimulate job creation, encourage technological innovation, attract foreign investment, launch joint research and development projects, promote economic diversity, and strengthen market sustainability. Furthermore, investing in nuclear energy allows developing nations to minimize their reliance on traditional sectors, reinforcing economic resilience and developing a more diverse and strong economic structure. However, the adoption of nuclear energy also brings forth a range of ethical and governance challenges that needs to be addressed to ensure its benefits are maximized and its risks minimized. Three prominent challenges include the risk of accident, nuclear waste management, and potential risk to public health are talked about. अगर हम risks to accident की बात करें, it encompasses the possibility of nuclear reactor malfunctions or disasters, which can have catastrophic consequences for both human life and the environment. Addressing this challenge requires stringent adherence to safety protocols and regulations set forth by international bodies like the International Atomic Energy Agency. Compliance with IAEA guidelines ensures that nuclear facilities are constructed, operated, and maintained with the highest standards of safety, reducing the likelihood of accidents. If we talk about the nuclear wastage management, as I talked earlier, that proper disposal and containment of radioactive waste are essential to prevent environmental contamination and health hazard. Again, IAEA provides guides on the safe handling and disposal of nuclear waste, including recommendations for long-term storage solution and monitoring techniques. Additionally, there are concerns about potential risks to public health stemming from exposure to radiations. In this context, robust regulatory framework informed by the guidance of organizations like the IAEA are crucial for assessing and minimizing these risks. This includes implementing strict radiation protection measures for workers in nuclear facilities and establishing protocols for monitoring and responding to radiation incidents. Despite some minor, if we look into the history of nuclear facilities, so despite some minor incidents, there have been no major catastrophic disasters linked to nuclear facilities globally. This highlights the significance of strict safety protocols and regulatory supervision, along with international collaboration in mitigating nuclear energy risks. Emphasizing safety, security, and environmental protection in nuclear development allows countries to maximize its benefits while minimizing potential dangers. Coming to the final point, the governance structure. Establishing robust government framework is imperative to navigate the ethical and practical complexities associated with the nuclear energy development as recommended by International Energy Agency, Atomic Energy Agency. These frameworks should encompass comprehensive regulations, oversight mechanisms, and international collaboration to ensure the safe and responsible operation of nuclear projects. If we look into the facilities in Pakistan, this responsibility falls under the purview of the Pakistan Nuclear Regulatory Authority, PANRA, which has been overseeing nuclear regulatory infrastructure since 1965. PANRA's mandate includes ensuring the safe operation of nuclear facilities, safeguarding radiation workers, the public, and the environment from radiation hazards, and fostering transparency and trust with licensees through effective regulation. To conclude, I would like to restate that the development of nuclear energy offers significant potential for fostering regional economic cooperation, enhancing energy security, and promoting economic diversification. However, ethical and governance challenges must be carefully managed in this context. By establishing robust governance frameworks and addressing ethical consideration, Pakistan and its neighboring countries can ensure that nuclear energy contributes to a cooperative and stable regional environment, ultimately benefiting all the stakeholders involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your very informative presentation, during which you, among other things, highlighted the centrality of energy in the universe. Nuclear energy is getting increasing attention at the global level. During COP28 held in UAE, 22 countries adopted a separate declaration committing to triple the production of nuclear energy in their countries by 2050. All this is happening because of the global climate change and its negative impact. all over the world. Um, Nuclear accidents is a genuine concern. We know about many accidents such as Fukushima and also one in Ukraine in 80s. But nuclear technology nowadays is considered to be very safe. During our visit to Karachi nuclear power plants in about 2 years ago, we were told that even if a 9/11 type attack takes place on the nuclear power plant, the outer wall of the reactor is so thick that it would not damage the reactor. So the world is now moving towards self-contained modular uh, nuclear power plants, which are small in size and can provide local solutions in many locations where installation of electricity grids or bigger nuclear power plants is not possible. Pakistan has a plan called 2050 nuclear energy production plan, under which we intend to produce about 40 megawatt of electricity. Uh, let's hope that we are able to do that, because we need that kind of, we need nuclear energy desperately, and we have to increase its share in the energy mix. Uh, our last speaker is Ms. Haya Fatma Iqbal, independent filmmaker and faculty at Habib University, Karachi. Madam, you have the floor.
My respected teachers, elders, and my dear colleagues. I am a documentary filmmaker mainly, so I'm going to show you a documentary film because most of my research takes place through documentary films themselves. Before we begin watching the film, I just want to share a little bit about this film and how this film got made, because that is what I ended up studying during the process of supervising these films. This film was made under a program called Kitne Dur Kitne Paas. Kitne Dur Kitne Paas was a film co-production workshop. It was a cross-border workshop, which means it happened between emerging filmmakers from Pakistan and India. And these filmmakers had never met each other in person ever before. These films were made during the COVID years, 2020, 2021, and even early 2022. Which means that these filmmakers continue to make films together without having met each other in two different parts, in two different countries, namely Pakistan and India. People met online. They were selected through a rigorous program. I was one of the lead trainers of the workshop. And they had to make films that said something about Pakistan and India without necessarily promoting these rather NGOized ideas of promoting peace or building peace together, etc., etc. So filmmakers they had the creative liberty to make films about anything that touched Pakistan and India both. And basically what happened was that I think we made 8 films, out of which one we're going to watch today. We learned about representing the other and representing ourselves through film. We learned how to make films on an equal footing, because I think especially as Pakistanis, we always have a lot of complaints about how Pakistanis and even Indian Muslims are represented in, let's say, Bollywood or in Indian cinema, in mainstream Indian cinema. But this was one opportunity where both parties came on an equal footing with an equal amount of funding, small funds for both sides, and they had to build ideas together and make a film together. So no party was more powerful than the other. If there was me, there was also an Indian lead trainer. So those voices were also being sort of equalized and neutralized in some way. We learned how to have a deeper understanding for each other and for the region overall. We also learned how to bring the audience closer to each other by building understanding through films. We also learned that we don't have to see media as an entity that is something that we can't interact with. We are the people, so we are the media, because nowadays everyone can make media on their own. We learned that we are the ones who need to build narratives. The media is not some outside entity. The media is you, I, and the gentleman standing behind the cameras in this room. So we can work together to build narratives as well, and we can also learn to look beyond the rigid boundaries of the nation state, because after all, ideas and emotions do not have borders. The film that I'm presenting today as the supervisor of this film is called Beltoon. Beltoon is a Pashto word. It means separation. And Beltoon was directed by Naqib Khan Kakar, who is a filmmaker from Loralai, Balochistan. It was made in Rajasthan and Balochistan. So here's Beltoon. I would just invite the three of you gentlemen. आप चाहें तो आप सामने भी आ सकते हैं, क्योंकि ये हाँ आपकी गर्दन में शायद तकलीफ हो. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone.
था जब हमें इस तरह का पता किया ये पार्टीशन हो रहा है और ये हो गया, हमें इन चीज़ों का बिल्कुल इल्म नहीं था और आज तक मुझे नहीं पता कि वो लोग रहते क्या।
तो आपको ऐसा लगता है कि अगर कायो मैम जी वहाँ पे अपनी दुकानें बचा कर रखें, वो भी चाहते हैं कि हिंदू आ जाए, यहाँ वाले लोग भी चाहते हैं कि हम वापस चले जाएं, तो किसी का भी उस चीज़ को वहाँ पे वहीं उस तरीके से बचा के रहना क्या कहता है?
यही कहता है कि लोग आज एक जो पीढ़ी बैठी है, जैसे मानो मैंने सेवनी बनाना के लिए, तो आज अगर हमारी जो कोठड़ी है जिसको लोग आज भी कोई उसका ऑप्शन के बावजूद भी खरीदार नहीं मिला, तो लोगों ने उसको अपनी साझा विरासत का हिस्सा माना, लोगों ने उसको अपना साझा हिस्ट्री का हिस्सा माना, लोगों ने उसको अपना साझा कल्चर का एक हिस्सा माना है। लेकिन अब जो तब्दीली आ रही है, नए जो जिस तरह के मोड़ आ रहे हैं सोसाइटी के अंदर, रिलीजियस जो फंडामेंटलिज्म बढ़ रहा है, जिस तरह का इन्फ्लुएंस करने की नेचुरल वे अपनाने की कोशिश हो रही है, तो वो एक चैलेंज है उस सोसाइटी के लिए, कहीं चाहे वो हिंदुस्तान की सोसाइटी हो, पाकिस्तान की सोसाइटी हो।
وفر شكارة فات سويس بينهم يختار مربى فايت صدار فدار فات سويس بينهم يختار دارا لو شو زواج دارت ويني سارواني زن قلت لعرف لي وزايش بعد جات الخالد عزبان جاو لما لما بدأ السطح بدأ غار كيمي داوة मैंने दादा और खपावन याद मुर्ग कादम सर बारवले सुल्तान वला लारेगान तकदवल ज़माने लावचे याद गदुप परेशानी पाबादो परेशानी दादा दे मुर्ग बाजार याद दादा دا پخوا همزازی دا تناس کړي دکانونه د هندوانو دا پروژه څه دکانونه دغه ځای چالو دا د دې چانه د کورو کلاګای دکانونه یې داخل شو پر دغه باندې باندې هلته دکانونه په پردم ځای شرع غلو ماذا سوى قليلات وسوى دم زمان كسكو يودا بار وسوى أخوتا بس بازار خلاص بازار ويمردا بيار ويوارا خالص وتوقف البار مشكلة لذلك وتكون دزون دكاختي دباتي جار هالكي كله خير راغلي ده وفناليك ده خط صاينة تشدد البراولي ده غير كلي ده غير كلي ده غير كلي ده طاي ده تعليم طول بكم ده المختار ده غدا يقول كافرين تيجي كاو ده غامر تلوه كاول يقول ده برتنو ده نايون كي تولد مزمور ده برتنو آدوي مراد كي یا تو تغدو ته جگای جاماو بس یا ته جگای دستور وي هاشلو کاکوي اندواني سر یا ته شپ په کلماتو کې ګلاو نو یا خو ته په ساده او خالق ट्रैक्टर किराया की बेराई तबिया वो बोराई तोई तबिया लो प्रो तोई لا يسرمالي بتوخي برتو تدور أكون الناس مسمع ندا برابر جاي يا الناس قاعد يجير فاري فاري orang kita percaya toda memang Hindu kaki negeri rawali nodai dapat turun fok rakai jatuh mati no biar kerun Allah zakat muslim perlu dikecela atau lingkungan Arab nawal mungkin kita ya na
सर बस अभी के लिए बता सकते फिर उस हिसाब से हमको किधर जाना चाहिए मतलब कहाँ से शुरू करना चाहिए जयपुर में अगर हम हैं
एक तो उदयपुर में एक बलूच कॉलोनी वो भी मैंने पता करके आपको मैं उससे लिंक दे देता हूँ बलूच कॉलोनी का मतलब ये है कि पीपल माइग्रेटेड फ्रॉम बलूचिस्तान और क्यों इतना क्योंकि ये इस पूरी सेंचुरी का सबसे बड़ा माइग्रेशन था इस बार माइग्रेशन था माइग्रेशन हुआ उसमें कितना ब्लंडर हुआ है क्या कुछ नहीं हुआ है और ये लोगों ने विटनेस किया वो परिवार के भी तक है जिन्होंने जिनके घरों में ये सब पीटा तो मुझे लग रहा है कि ये कहानी का कैनवास जो है वो आपको थोड़ा बड़ा रखना रहेगा हाँ
ठीक है थैंक यू सो मच उन्होंने एंड बोला कि आपको किसी से बात करने में भी वो होता है क्योंकि हिंदू मुस्लिम में अपना वो विश्वास का फैक्टर नहीं रहा है तो अगर मैं किसी से पूछने भी जाऊँगा तो फिर वो पूछेंगे कि क्यों पूछ रहा है किस चीज़ में इंटरेस्ट है इसको
بيختار المخلوق وبيهدوه قدام الدين باني يوا نسبة دين ولا وتخلقوا فناس فرق راغي ناتي كوتشادي تابو فلانيت كم شاي نرا كاوي ضرورة ده بدي براوي متبوري خارجي مستي ده جواد وازن وجب مستي تلقوي ده ودوار ما زكاوي كوري بوهواتوي تيجا تزرقلي كولا كلايو فزات خارجي ده دوازاو تبرا غالطة زيادة جاب الواسع كريجة زيادة دايما وصبارا جبلا بيما تاشي ما تمرجوش تاي مرجوا يو أبدا لا ينايو كذا بدأ ترى
उनके बड़े अभी ना भी हो तो उनके बच्चे तो आ रहे होंगे काश में मतलब मिल जाते हैं उन्हें आप उनसे ढूंढ लेते हैं उनसे मायका चलो जाए
A big hand, I would propose standing ovation for her. Well, I think we have already overshot our allocated time, but if you permit, we can take one or two questions. Or, yeah, just two questions, please.
So the question is, isn't it the very same reason the Britishers divided the Indian subcontinent 75 years ago? They wanted to prevent this regional connectivity. They wanted to prevent this region to become the most wealthiest region in the world. Do you think they wouldn't prevent it again?
I think we are independent countries now. We both are strong countries. We are both nuclear weapon states. We can take care of ourselves. India tried attack Pakistan in February 2019, and we responded the very next day, captured their pilot who was later returned as a gesture of goodwill. India hasn't dared to attack Pakistan after that. British didn't play any role in that. They didn't try to prevent that conflict. They didn't play any role even after that. What I'm trying to say is that we are masters of our own destiny now. We are entitled to taking independent decisions, and we should take a decision, any decision, that is in the best interest of Pakistan. I wish to emphasize one thing here, that when we talk of connectivity with India and beyond, and connecting the entire region that is Central and South Asia, we are talking about interests of Pakistan first and the foremost. We would not undertake anything that just serves the Indian interest. As far as connectivity between India and Pakistan is concerned, it is already there. We have Airlink, we had bus service, we have Samjhota Express, we have Khokra Par Vanabao link. All these were suspended after India annexed Kashmir and made it occupied Kashmir and made it and bifurcated it into two territories of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir and incorporated both these as union territories. But after that, the government of Pakistan has indicated, at least on two occasions, to resume trade. This government also, soon after coming to power, indicated that they would be willing to consider trade with India, but it is India which is not willing so far. Now that the elections are over, there's going to be new government, continuation of the same, but a much weaker government. Let's see what their policy is towards Pakistan. But let me assure you that Britishers have no role in this. Thank you. I think Mirza Sahib is referring to the great game that was played between Russia and the British Empire when they were occupying this area. Thank you. Yes, please.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम हिबा खान है और मैं एरिया स्टडी सेंटर ऑफ यूरोप में एमफिल की स्टूडेंट हूँ। और मेरा सवाल जो है वो रिलेटेड टू मिस्टर सैयद समीउल्ला की जो रिसर्च पेपर थी उनके हवाले से है कि हमारी जो न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी है उसको यूज़ करना या उसकी कंजप्शन। सो आई हैव फ्यू क्वेश्चन, थोड़ा मेरे ख्याल से आपके लिए ये बहुत बचकाना हो, आप लोग यकीनन आंसर कर सकते हैं। बट द थिंग इज़ कि पाकिस्तान जैसी कंट्री जहाँ पे लैक ऑफ रिसोर्सेज के साथ साथ लैक ऑफ मैनेजमेंट या लैक ऑफ पॉलिसी मेकिंग भी है, वहाँ पे आपको लगता है कि न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी को हम एज अ रिसोर्स यूज़ कर सकते हैं फॉर हैविंग अदर रिसोर्सेज? विद दैट आपने कंपैरिजन किया उसको अमेरिका के साथ, जिनके पास आपने बताया शायद 92 फैसिलिटीज़ हैं टू हैव दिस टू क्रिएट न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी एंड ऑल। तो उसके साथ ही अगर मैं इसके पैरेलल देखूं और हैविंग दिस डिस्कशन डायलॉग इन साउथ एशिया की जो हम बात करेंगे, तो यहाँ पे ज़्यादातर सोलर एनर्जी का जो है हम यूज़ कर सकते हैं, दैट इज़ मोर रेलिवेंट और मोर इजी टू एक्सेस फॉर द टाइम। तो उसके हवाले से वो हमारे लिए ज़्यादा इजी है। जबकि अगर हम इसके कंपैरेटिवली इंडिया को देखें तो इंडिया ने एक प्रोग्राम बनाया है सूर्या घर, जिसमें वो 2050 तक उनका अचीवमेंट ये है कि 500 गीगावाट एनर्जी उनको प्रोड्यूस करनी है, जहाँ पे 300 यूनिट्स वो फ्री प्रोवाइड करेंगे अपनी लाइक लोगों के लिए। तो डोंट यू थिंक दिस इज़ मोर सस्टेनेबल अप्रोच rather than having nuclear energy resources that is more kind of a fairy tale in the country like Pakistan?
थैंक यू। पहले आपके सवाल का जो पहला हिस्सा है वो ये था कि हमने पाकिस्तान का कंपैरिजन अमेरिका के साथ किया है। इस वक्त पाकिस्तान में 6 ऐसे फैसिलिटीज़ ऑपरेशनल हैं और 7वीं फैसिलिटी लग रही है। जैसे कि मैंने बताया 3600 प्लस मेगावाट बिजली पाकिस्तान प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं। आपको हैरत होगी कि ये कंपैरिजन आप इस मद में कह रही हैं कि कहाँ पाकिस्तान और कहाँ अमेरिका बहादुर, लेकिन आपको हैरत होगी कि आज तक 70% या 75% से ज़्यादा जो एक्सीडेंट्स हुए हैं या इंसिडेंट्स हुए हैं वो अमेरिका में हुए हैं, और पाकिस्तान में इस हवाले से एक भी एक्सीडेंट या इंसिडेंट नहीं हुआ। सर ने कुछ देर पहले इशारा किया फ्यूकुशिमा की तरफ या इसके अलावा यूक्रेन वाले इंसिडेंट की तरफ। दुनिया में थोड़े बहुत इंसिडेंट हुए हैं लेकिन पाकिस्तान में नहीं हुआ। तो पाकिस्तान इस हवाले से अमेरिका के मुकाबले में मच बेटर है कि वो अपने फैसिलिटीज़ को सेफ एंड सिक्योर रख रहा है। दूसरी बात आपने कहा कि वो उसको हम रिप्लेस कर सकते हैं सन लाइट से यानी सोलर एनर्जी से। जैसे कि मैंने कहा वो रिलायबल नहीं है। अगर सोलर यानी सनलाइट नहीं है तो आपको एनर्जी कहाँ से मिलेगी? उसको ज़रूर हम यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं लेकिन उसकी वजह से हम न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी को रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकते, ख़त्म नहीं कर सकते हैं। दूसरी बात, जैसे हमने कहा कि 1000 मेगावाट की फैसिलिटी अगर आप न्यूक्लियर की लगाते हैं तो 1 स्क्वायर माइल से ज़्यादा का एरिया आपको दरकार है, जिसको प्रोटेक्ट करना, जिसको सिक्योर करना बड़ा आसान है। लेकिन अगर आप 1000 मेगावाट बिजली आपको चाहिए और आप सोलर लगाते हैं तो आपको 75 टाइम्स ज़्यादा स्पेस दरकार है और उसकी सिक्योरिटी आपको दरकार है। तो वो रिलायबल नहीं है इस हवाले से, इसलिए हम उसको रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकते। हाँ, हम डोमेस्टिकली उसे यूज़ कर सकते हैं और वो एक रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी है और अच्छी एनर्जी है। थैंक यू।
एक इन्होंने आपके सवाल का मेरा ख्याल है कि जो तमाम एंगल्स थे उनको कवर किया है। सिर्फ न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी के हवाले से मैं एक चीज़ पाकिस्तान के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बयान करना चाहता हूँ स्टूडेंट्स के इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए कि चाइना इज़ द ओनली कंट्री which offers cooperation to Pakistan in the field of nuclear energy. Why? Because we are not a signatory to NPT, and because of that, no nuclear supplies, no member of the nuclear supplies group is willing to cooperate with Pakistan. That's a limitation. But that also serves to strengthen Pakistan-China relations. That is why we say that is one reason our relationship with China is of strategic nature. China is a dependable partner, and right now our Prime Minister, as we speak, is in China, and I think he's going to come back with many more agreements and MOUs in the bag. And our relationship, I think, is going to move to another level with China. As compared to Pakistan, there's no restriction on India with regard to importing nuclear technology and nuclear power plants, nuclear material from any country in the world. Why? Because number one, the US signed 123 agreement or civil nuclear agreement with India in 2005. And then US managed a waiver from the nuclear supplies group for India in 2008. You know that our nuclear program has been under severe American sanctions, whereas no sanctions have been applied on India. Despite that, we have progressed well. As he mentioned, 3,500 megawatt of electricity is being produced, and we were also able, despite the sanctions, to go nuclear, which the nuclear program of Pakistan has ensured our security, including vis-a-vis India. Thank you very much. With this, let us conclude this session. And let me thank all the speakers for their very insightful presentations. Thank you for being with us. And let me thank Mr. Nusrat Mirza and Dr. Usma Shajat for inviting us, for carefully selecting the topics which were very interesting. Thank you very much. I think this conference has been organized in an excellent manner. Let's have a big hand for them. Congratulations.
I now request Mr. Nusrat Mirza and Dr. Usma Shajat to distribute the shields among panelists. Ambassador Qazi Khalilullah. Ambassador Qazi Khalilullah. Dr. Asadur Rahman, Miss Haya Fatima Iqbal, Mr. Sayyid Samiullah,
देखिए, ये जो हमारी स्टूडेंट ने सवाल किया है, आई एम द ऑथर ऑफ द बुक ऑन न्यूक्लियर सिविल न्यूक्लियर एटॉमिक टेक्नोलॉजी. नेम इज़ नश्तर जौहर तहकीक, derived from the verse of अल्लामा इकबाल, कैसे हुआ कुन तेरा नश्तर तहकीक, क्यों नहीं होते तुझसे सितारों के जिगर चाक. ये एक बुक है जो मैं डॉक्टर उज़्मा शुजात को देता हूँ, पेश करता हूँ, माफ़ी चाहता हूँ, और वो आपके लाइब्रेरी में रख देंगे. जितने भी आपके एटॉमिक एनर्जी के हवाले से सवालात हैं उसमें जवाब दे दिए गए हैं. इज़ ए वेरी वेल रिसर्च बुक एंड ओनली बुक, उर्दू की पहली किताब है, एटमी की उर्दू की पहली किताब है. वो आप ज़रूर पढ़ लीजिए. कायदा पढ़े बगैर आप एटम को नहीं समझ सकते. ये कायदा है उर्दू एटॉमिक उर्दू का.
With this note, the first session comes to an end. I request you all to kindly join us for lunch, and it is also requested to be back by 2:45 p.m. so that we may start the second session on time. Thank you.
तीसरे सेशन की तफसीलात जानने के लिए मुलाहिजा कीजिए हमारा अगला प्रोग्राम. RFI प्रेजेंट से हमें दीजिए इजाज़त. अल्लाह निगहबान.